Welcome back to the Horse Racing Show. This guy's a friend of mine. He's a terrific writer, columnist for the Lexington Herald Leader, Mark Story, who has written has given one of the best takes, I think, on the whole Derby disqualification. And rather than read it all to you, I thought the man himself should be on here to talk about it. Mark, welcome into the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Kenny.
I thought that you posed a question that I don't know if anybody else has really posed, and that is, what's different?
Well, if you look at how the Derby has traditionally been officiated, it's in basketball terms, they've sort of let them play. I mean, when you enter a 20-horse field, you know it's going to be, kind of a rough, rugged ride. And most years you come out of the Derby, somebody has a story of, their trip was impeded by contact. And, usually there's no ramifications for that from the officials. And obviously this year there was a rather major ramification. And I wish the stewards would have talked or, beyond issuing the statement they issued and taking questions and sort of answered, why they, felt this year was different than the way the Derby has traditionally been sort of refereed, so to speak.
Do you think it's just gotten to the fact that, and I mentioned this earlier at the start of this show, I think politically correct to me has gotten skewed. It was fun when it started out. You're supposed to try to be nice to each other, try to get along with each other, respect each other. I get that part. But now we're so sensitive, and since I feel if Santa Anita hadn't happened, we might not have a disqualification. That's just my opinion on things, because obviously the nature of the safety of the horse is paramount more than ever before.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think either consciously or subconsciously, the situation at Santa Anita and 23 horse deaths, I think that played a major role in what happened at the Derby. I think the irony in that, at least to me, is, had they let the results stand, to the larger sports population, the millions of sort of general fans that, watch the Derby and probably don't pay that much attention to horse racing the rest of the time, they would have all moved on. Mm-hmm. Kind of by the fact that they disqualified, and we were seeing all these frame by frame replays of the race for, days on end. It sort of emphasizes just how dangerous it looks. Yeah. So while I'm sure they were trying to do the right thing, I think they may have unintentionally brought more scrutiny on the sport rather than sort of taking it away.
That's an interesting point. We had Larry Colmus on, the man who calls the Derby, and he was talking about that people have been, and you know how this goes with social media, Mark. They've been tweeting him. Why didn't you mention when they were turning there that there was an infraction, in the race call? I've had people, did you see how bad it was? Well, no, I did not. I think you just summed it up. I would guess that 98% of the people there did not pick up immediately how profound it was when you see it in slow motion and you see that War Will almost runs right over as he's moved in front of by maximum security. But you don't see that as it's happening. Very few people see that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I didn't get the sense as the race was run that there was a lot of feeling in the immediate aftermath that, it had been a controversial trip. It was the replays that obviously, brought that to light.
Do you think that in horse racing that this has any impact at all on a national audience? They're always looking for that. What's going to get people interested in horse racing? 2 Triple Crown winners. It did something for the moment, but it hasn't made it rocket past many sports as far as popularity. I'm not sure that controversy helps that much either, but I don't know. What do you think?
I don't think it will have a positive impact long term. If the same 2 horses were going to run back in the Preakness, I think it might create interest for that rematch. Since it appears that's not going to happen, I would guess the Preakness TV ratings are going to be pretty. No offense, Kenny. I hope everybody tunes in to watch you, but I would guess they're not going to be robust.
I think the same thing, and a friend asked me the other day. Think of this scenario. I said, what if Country House is just so much better than those 65-1 odds, and everybody missed on him, and he goes on to win the Preakness and the Belmont? Would he be the Triple Crown winner, really?
That's an interesting question. I was doing some research on 1968 which obviously is the only other time a Derby winner was disqualified in a very different, not on the track scenario. But the horse that was awarded the Derby victory, Forward Pass, then went on and won the Preakness. And
Yes.
there was a lot of, in the media commentary at the time, there was a lot of debate about if he wins the Belmont, is he really a Triple Crown winner since he didn't win the Derby on the track? If Country House wins the Preakness, I think officially he's going for the Triple Crown, but I don't think the public would see him as a legitimate Triple Crown winner.
No, I don't either. I wish, and not that the West family's worried about what I think, but just from, in some ways, almost sort of for ratings, but really almost in a public relations move. It'd be interesting, wouldn't it, if they say, we've changed our mind. They're not going to hear our appeal. We're going to run our horse again and show that he's the best. Now, that's the kind of drama and controversy that everybody likes in any sport, I think.
Yeah, I think if both those horses come to Baltimore, then the Preakness becomes super interesting and commands a big national platform. And under that scenario, I think the controversy would bring people in. But if that rematch does not occur, then I think the controversy in the long term is going to hurt the sport, not help it.
Talking with Mark Story, columnist for the Lexington Herald Leader. Of course, in Kentucky, we know him well and read him all the time. You can read him online wherever you are. Go to Kentucky.com. Mark, one thing that I think might happen out of all this is because, as you astutely pointed out in your article about this, and as Bob Baffert mentioned about, you put your big boy pants on and basically you just never filed an objection in the Derby. That has been kind of the unwritten code among all trainers and jockeys over the years. But now with this precedent, I just wonder down the road if this is going to become almost an annual occurrence, maybe not so much for the winner, but the fact that it pays down to the fifth position. You may have people filing that, I could have been third. I could have gotten a piece of the pie at least, and you could have been fourth. I mean, I just have this scenario in my head that I should get used to interviewing a lot of jockeys and trainers about why they filed an objection after races in future derbies.
Yeah, I think that's very possible. And the other thing is, if they're going to stay at 20 horses, you're almost guaranteeing by the nature of the event that there's going to be contact and, controversial elements of the race. And you're right, if it becomes kind of accepted practice, which after this, the fact that it paid off so handsomely, I would think it will be accepted practice. I think there's going to be a lot of controversy in future races.
Someone asked me again, I've done some radio shows, and most of them are sports shows where people really don't talk about horse racing except briefly around Derby time, and honestly wouldn't be talking about the Derby had the disqualification not happened. So I understand that. And on one show they said, so I guess this is like a foul in the first 3 minutes of the game should also be the same foul that should be called in the final 10 seconds to decide the game. I said, yeah, I mean, as far as the infraction, it was. And I know if this were the average 8-9 horse field in the middle of the week, it would have been called automatically. Nobody would have thought about anything. I said, but if you want to stay with the basketball analogy, the Kentucky Derby is like going into the NCAA championship game, except now you're playing 6-on-6. So you got two extra guys out there. Do you call the same fouls that you would call as a 5-on-5 game? I mean, the Derby, like you said, it's its own entity, and and there's nothing else to compare to it in horse racing. I mean, as far as just the number of horses that are going to be running in that one day.
Yeah, it's a genuinely unique event, and it had always been officiated in that way. And that, I think, is the question the stewards needed to answer Saturday night. And somebody in the chain of command in Kentucky horse racing in the state probably needs to still answer that. Is just, why was it officiated differently this year? Did they believe the infraction was so egregious that it outstripped all the prior years, that it merited kind of a departure from how the race had always been called? I think that's a question that really needs to be answered.
And, I think everybody's still worried about litigation and what else. Forget about appeals right now, that they're going to be silent for a while. That's just my guess. I have no inside information, but I just wonder when somebody will come out and address this.
Yeah, that's a good point. And as long as there's the threat of litigation, there probably isn't going to be a lot of information forthcoming, and that's too bad, because that's just going to sort of let the uncertainty and, I don't know, ill will or whatever controversy is going to linger, I think, for a while.
Well, you should read him each day, as I do, and no matter where you are listening in around the country, go to Kentucky.com. He is Mark Story, the columnist for the Lexington Herald Leader. He always makes you think, and this week especially with the question, what's different? It's always been a rough run race. It's always had a big field, and there's never been a DQ like this until now. Mark, I really appreciate you being on with us.
I appreciate you having me, Kenny.
All right, thank you. Stay with us. More coming up on the Horse Racing Show right after this.